Let everybody roll in. What's good indeed, John? How's everybody? Cheers. People tell me to wake up. I understand that. Indeed, I did get a fresh haircut this morning. It has been a long day. I am quite tired. I figured those Bitcoin comments are very newsworthy. I saw prompts for them, so I figured I would give my thoughts. If the volume is not working, I have a suggestion. Try opening it in a different app. I get people telling me that the Periscope app itself is weak for volume, but that the Twitter app, it's fine. I don't know what to tell you. People complaining as the volume. So that's what I got. All right, let's do this. I'm sorry, somebody just sent me a message that I thought was funny. Social media summit. No, Bitcoin. I said Bitcoin first. We're talking Bitcoin. Trump said Bitcoin. What did he tweet? Let's find it out. This is a serious tweet right here. The Bitcoin stuff. He's not a fan. He's not a fan at all. It caught my eye big time when he tweeted this stuff out. So let me pull it up if I could, and then I will read it, and we'll talk about what he said. I quote, "I am not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies which are not money and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity. Similarly, Facebook's Libra's virtual currency will have little standing or dependability. If Facebook and other companies want to become a bank, they must seek a new banking charter and become subject to all banking regulations, just like other banks, both national and international. We only have one real currency in the United States, and it is stronger than ever, both defendable and reliable. It is by far the most dominant currency anywhere in the world, and it will always stay that way. It is called the United States dollar." I've seen friends of mine surprised because obviously this is somewhat alienating to libertarians who dream of a world where the Federal Reserve is not the dominant monetary institution. Dream of a world where we have a currency that is not, quote unquote, out of thin air, that is not fiat. What they mean by that is that it is supply constrained. They want a supply constrained currency. Libertarians are believers in general, especially Austrian economists, are often believers in the fundamental theory, the subjective theory of value, the fundamental theory of exchange. The idea being that the fact that whenever you make a trade, you're not making a trade of equal value for equal value. You're actually trading to increase each other's value, right? You wouldn't bother making a trade if you didn't think something was more valuable than the other guy did, and vice versa. That value is subjective. The value is rooted in demand, what people actually want, what people can use something for, that it's not objective and rooted in the instrument itself. Why do I bring this up? Because when it comes to that, libertarians are completely correct when it comes to the idea that value is subjective and rooted in demand, what you can do with something, not supply, not the constrained supply. Libertarians constantly want to find a currency that is supply constrained, meaning that you can't make more of it. They think that is the key to having a valuable currency. So they like gold. They like Bitcoin because Bitcoin is algorithmically supply constrained. You cannot make more. It's limited. But they don't think about in terms of what makes a currency valuable and why President Trump is right to say that Bitcoin's value is based on air is that they don't think about demand floor. They think about supply ceiling as being a driver of value, but they don't think about a demand floor as being a driver of value. Bitcoin could go to zero. That's why it's not a good investment. The dollar will never go to zero. Do you know why the dollar won't go to zero? Because there's a demand floor. You know what the demand floor is? You need dollars to pay taxes. You know what they say about life, that there are two certainties in life, death and taxes? You can't pay the federal government in gold. You can't pay the federal government in Bitcoin. You can't pay the federal government in euros. You know what you need to pay the federal government? Dollars. Demand floor. 300 million of the wealthiest people in the world need dollars to pay taxes to the most powerful sovereign that has ever existed. That's why the dollar isn't out of thin air. That's why the dollar is the strongest currency in the world. Many people predicted the downfall of the dollar in the aftermath of the financial crisis because they said the expansionary fiscal policy, all the bailouts, were going to ruin the dollar, lead to massive inflation. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. If anything, we had deflation. So when President Trump talks about Bitcoin, he says it's not a real currency. It's perhaps too aggressive an argument. Because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is used as a medium of exchange. Probably wrong to say that it's not a currency. But when he says that it's too volatile, oh yeah, he's right about that. Currency volatility is not useful because, especially from the perspective of what makes a good what is helpful for monetary policy, from the perspective of a sovereign that wants to ensure stable employment and wages. A sovereign that adopted Bitcoin as a currency would be doing something so incredibly foolish as to be honestly worth kicking them out of office if it were democratic. There's no way you could have, I mean, it would just completely create chaos in the world. So, moreover, his critique of Facebook is also well taken. Facebook wants to be a bank, wants to issue a world currency, wants to even be part of a colloquium doing that. Yo, you're signing up to banking regulations. You are not sovereign. Right? We're dealing with this problem. I mean, that's part of the problem, the social media problem. These companies are starting to get to the point where they think they are sovereign. They aren't. They aren't. Writing an article on this for Human Events would be an interesting idea. I actually wrote a paper on it in law school. Moreover, President Trump is right that Bitcoin facilitates black market transactions. And black market transactions are kind of a problem. The value, the demand for your currency, the demand floor shouldn't be based on the black market. It shouldn't be based on illegal transactions. The point I'm making is that President Trump is right about Bitcoin. Fundamentally. Most of my friends, a lot of my friends probably disagree. A lot of my viewers probably disagree. But I think he's right. I don't think that's the right path. So, that was the Bitcoin bit. Next. Social media. Somebody says, should you sell? I don't know what your investment strategy is, right? It depends on what your investment strategy is. I don't know. I'm not an investment advisor. I don't know what to tell you. Cernovich and I disagree on this one. I don't know how, like, Cernovich's investment thesis always struck me as a little bit of a sound, but short-term investment thesis. Like, I've not understood. I don't know that Cernovich has a long-term answer to the arguments I'm making. I think he probably does. I just haven't heard it. Anyway, so last two streams you can't hear you. Again, like those of you who are having trouble hearing me, which I assume is not fake, again, try a different app. Try Twitter and then switch into it because apparently, like people have had trouble if they close out of Periscope and re-enter it or do Twitter, they can do that. Social media summit. I was pleasantly surprised. I was. I thought it was. I was a little worried at the beginning because I thought that the interviews with Dan Crenshaw and Kevin McCarthy demonstrated them to be a little too milquetoast on the issue, a little bit too unwilling to regulate. My project of turning regulating big tech into a litmus test for conservatives is still a work in progress. But I was impressed by Trump, and I was impressed by who Trump brought up. Namely, watching Trump introduce Harmeet Dillon, the excellent lawyer who's brought a number of cases in California and is one of the biggest fighters for this issue. Watching President Trump bring up Josh Hawley, Senator Josh Hawley, to talk about his legislation, which would be aggressive and which I have praised on this Periscope. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to be more of a stunt, especially at the beginning, because at the beginning it was Kellyanne Conway interviewing Diamond and Silk, who, while I have nothing against, I do not find to be particularly compelling. I just don't. I don't think. I think they're more entertainers than they are serious, like, thinkers, and this is something that does require serious thinking, in my judgment. So, but that said, it really did get a lot better, and especially with Josh Hawley, Harmeet, Lila Rose, a lot of people, it was good. Somebody says, what happened with the Q&A portion? It was more Q&A and feedback from various people. It was like quasi off the record. President Trump said some things that were really excellent also. At one point he said, Ryan Fournier asked him whether he thought the tech companies would self-correct, and he was like, no. At one point, I think the president called the tech companies liars. It's really clear that the administration is seized by this issue, and I'm confident that good things will happen. Somebody asked, did I get one-on-one time with Trump? No, I didn't. It was not. I mean, it was a very large gathering. I didn't realize how large it would be. It was like, I thought it might be, I don't know, anywhere from like 50 to 100 people. It turned out to be almost 250. A lot of people in the room. And as a result, there wasn't like any time for like hanging out with the president or shaking his hand or anything. Like he like got there, gave his speech, brought people up, etc. It was more like a presentation, like it had a rally vibe to it, even though there were just 250 of us in the East Room of the White House, which is kind of cool. But it had a rally vibe, and President Trump was in kind of rally mode. I mean, you could tell by the sort of off the cuff. He was at times like sort of meandering, rambling, funny, but at times very funny and very entertaining. Like Carpe, Doxman, and I were sitting across the aisle from each other, and there were multiple times where we were just doubled over laughing at various comments the president made. Like at one point, he was just like, you guys come up with some brilliant stuff, like insane. I don't even know where it comes from, but it was very funny. How did Secret Service look in person? I don't know. They were wearing like Secret Service stuff. It wasn't that weird. Did Tim Pool wear the beanie? Yes, Tim Pool wore the beanie. Tim Pool did not wear a suit. He did not wear a suit. I said to Tim, I was like, hey, it is the President of the United States, but he didn't. I didn't get a great view of the Gorka fight, was because I was kind of on the other side from where it happened. So the Jim Hansen video is much better, but I did see it. I was sitting front row at the Rose Garden announcement where he announced the executive order to try and give the Commerce Department more on the census. Of course I wore a suit. I'm not Tim Pool. I can't get away with it. How did Bill Mitchell get? I don't know. Maybe he's standing for President Trump for 4 years. Got Bill Mitchell an invite to this thing. I don't think it was cool to get an invite. It was very much an honor to get an invite to the White House. But I wouldn't say it was like this is not like a small group meeting. I mean, you didn't get any time to I didn't get to talk to any White House officials or anything like that. So the idea that it was like super important to get an invite, it's like, no, it's like it's nice and it's an honor, but it wasn't like I got to communicate my views to the White House or anything like that. Like they were doing a presentation for us and giving us a chance to have like a brief Q&A. So, of course I look sharp. What do you think? I'm not going to look sharp at the White House? Come on. Thank you. I appreciate that, though. Fleckus was invited. Fleckus was there. I saw Fleckus. Fleckus was there. Drano was there. A lot of people were there. There was some networking. The coolest part of the networking was actually getting to meet and talk with Dan Bongino. It turns out that like Bongino had, if you guys are familiar with Checkmate, the article I wrote at the very beginning of the Launch of Human Events, Bongino is actually going to quote that in his next book about Mueller. And we actually had a good talk. Like Bongino and I, Bongino actually knows my stuff and likes it, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, so that was pretty neat. Yeah, Trump. Maybe Trump should do periscopes. It wasn't bad. I did not talk to Crenshaw, right? Like, there wasn't enough time. Like, here's the thing you got to understand about it. It really was not. It was not really well designed for like a meet and greet and networking. Like, more of that is happening at the Trump Hotel right now than happened at the actual summit, because gate opened at 2. You had to go through security. So by the time you finally got through security and got into like the entrance area to the East Room, it was about like 2:15. And then by 2, and that was if you showed up right on time. And then if you get at 2:45, they like open the doors into the East Room, so to get everybody seated, if you saw. And so there was literally like at max, if you showed up at the very beginning, you got like, there was like half an hour of total networking time. And most people weren't there at the very beginning. Like it took a while for everybody to fill in. And so really, if you're talking about like actual good networking time, you had like 15 minutes total. So honestly, I was happy to be able to get a chance to talk with Bongino. And that was sufficient to like make it worthwhile. It was, but I would have loved to hang out and network in that room. There were a lot of interesting people in there. So very tight security. Very tight security. Yeah, Gorka beating up on Brian Karem was funny. Do I feel like Trump is bigger than life? I wouldn't say that. He does have like a certain charisma. He has charisma, but at the same time, like it was so informal. Here's the interesting thing about that event. I can imagine being in places where you're listening to a presidential speak and nobody is like willing to look at their phone. But like there were plenty of people just looking at their phones. It felt informal. It felt almost like a stand-up routine in a weird way. So I wouldn't say it was like larger than life in that experience, but it was really entertaining and I really enjoyed it. And I was really glad to see the president like do what he did. So yeah, exactly. Like it was like he feels like a bud. Yeah, and he was very transparent, very off the cuff. Uh, it was really funny when he tried to describe like his own personal experience of like being losing his social media. Like it was just so I don't know. I don't mean to be harsh, but it was so boomer. It was like well, I was gaining followers and I would gain like lots of followers, and then I stopped gaining so many followers. And they said they were like cleaning up the accounts, but I don't know. That doesn't sound true. They're like gaining and losing, and he started like reciting numbers in this really weird way. I couldn't even like follow what he was doing. It was just really, it was very boomer, right? It was like, I kind of think I understand what's going on, and I feel like I should gain more followers, but I didn't, and why, it was just funny. So it's like he's doing that has the same experience that we all have. It was really enjoyable. Um, yeah. So right, but but he had the right people on there, right? He had Harmeet. Like it's clear that even if he is like not 100% clear about what the right answer is here. I mean, but he's showing good leadership, and his team is focused on it. So, dude, he talked about people living in their mother's basements, like the people who hate him. It was just really funny. It was very very funny. What's going to come out of this? Oh yeah, he mentioned Antifa, and that was great too. Talked about how like nobody ever like attacks the bikers for Trump. How's it going? Yeah, no, it was good. Raheem was there. Raheem was there with Harlan. Uh, you know, Scavino was the point person for all this. Yeah, it was really entertaining. And I'm making fun of skinny arms. That was funny too. I don't know if DOJ is starting investigations. He didn't really talk a lot about that. He talked a lot about the Hawley legislative plan, and he talked about the Marshall Blackburn big tech working group, basically, or I don't know what the team is, but it's going to include Hawley, and it's on Senate Judiciary. I didn't get a great view of the Gorka fight. I didn't get a better view than Jim Hansen had with his video, and so I didn't hear it clearly. Yeah, Mike Morrison was there. I mean, like, understand, the people who make the point, it's like, well, he's just doing, when he didn't make certain invites. I'm not, there were, as I said, I had quibbles with the guest list. I think there were people that should have been there that weren't, and people who were there that shouldn't have been. But at the same time, like, one, they're trying. Like, it was a 250 person event. They're not going to get the guest list right. Like, it's inevitable. Two, it wasn't the point of it. And moreover, like the people who were saying like he should just invite anybody who's banned, it's like that would detract from the event. One. And two, it's a White House invite. Like, are you guys saying that people, the Trump should be treating like White House invites the same way we expect Twitter and Facebook to treat anybody who speaks? Like, no, clearly a White House invite should be a little more selective, and it's acceptable. It's right for the president to think more carefully about his associations. And that's a perfectly reasonable and consistent with position with everybody should be getting the right to speak, but I shouldn't have to invite everybody to the White House, and I certainly shouldn't have to invite people who behave and do unreasonable things, right? It's one thing to say they should get the right to speak. It's another thing entirely to say that they should get a White House invite, right? So, I'm not as sympathetic to that. I think, it's, and moreover, understand, like, the press was not in the outskirts the whole time. It just came in at like 3:45. It came in once the president was going to go into his speech, and then when the president went off for an hour, that was what happened. I mean, some of the things Trump was occasionally a little bit like flaky, but in general, it was really good. Like I was, I would say that the weird thing was the meandering. Like Trump would just get off topic and talk about a million different things. Like he talked about the Golan Heights, he talked about the economy and black unemployment, and like a million. He was talking about like 50 million different things that are totally unrelated to social media. And then when he gets back to social media, he's like, oh, right, it's a social media center. Let me go back to reading my speech about social media. It was just it was very endearing. It was very endearing. So, but I enjoyed it. Feelings about the Tommy Robinson verdict. That's a good question, because it's like, talk about a day that I was like doing something else. And so the Tommy Robinson verdict got short shrift. I am not surprised. if you go back to the work I was doing all the way back in, I think it was 2018, early 2018, where I was talking about the Tommy Robinson case, you'll notice that I actually do think that he was in trouble on contempt, right? That it was a real challenge. It was always going to be a real challenge to prove that Tommy wasn't in contempt of court, because he really did find himself in the jaws of some of the worst laws imaginable in the UK. So I'm not surprised by it. I think, I look at it like Tommy made a mistake, and it sucks, and it's overcharging, but it's like he was driving around with a broken taillight. Like, he really did violate the law, and the law he violated does give judges incredible discretion. So you can be like, well, it's unfair, and they should have used their discretion differently, but like, it's like he was driving around with a broken taillight and got pinned by a establishment that wanted to hit him. And so I feel sad, and I feel very sad for his family, and I don't think it's justice to put him in jail for what he did at all. Like, I think, nothing he did would have been unlawful at all in the United States. And at the same time, it's like, I'm not surprised. So I'm not surprised. I don't think it is it is unlawful what the British government is doing to him, but I think it is unjust. So that's the way I would think about it. The Orange Man does not like Bitcoin. That's right. Funny thing is, I think he's sounder on monetary policy than most people. What's the end game for the social media committee? I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. I hope more aggressive stuff. So, he pled guilty. Yeah, I mean, so that's what I would say there. I'll take a few more questions. I did not talk with Junior. Literally, again, like, there just wasn't time to talk to people, which is, I guess, like, the thing that is mildly sort of like, oh, it would have been nice to talk to a lot of people there. The best, as I mentioned, the best I really got was getting a chance to talk to Dan Bongino for about 10 minutes, which was cool. 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah. Is FCC going to roll on everyone? I suspect so. Where did I get my GD? I went to Georgetown Law. I'm getting a puppy? I don't know anything about puppies. French bulldogs snore. That's all I know. What's going on with the census? Oh, that's another interesting point. Trump is that was, while that executive order was like a really big, bold, like, attempt to be like, we're fighting on the actual question of, like, will they get the citizenship question on the census there, that's a fold, right? They're conceding that they will not. Now, whether or not that actually, the executive order will let them get better information, I don't know the answer to that question, but that certainly is, like, a way to, it was an attempt to do in my judgment, as like just from without knowing the details of the executive order and exactly what that sort of data will allow, it seemed like a way to sort of gracefully concede on the question of putting the citizenship question on the census. Because they just, Barr explained it really well. Like, they can't, unless they're willing to defy the courts, like, literally defy injunctions that say they can't do what they want to do. They just kind of have to take the L, and it sucks. And Roberts is an asshole, but I don't see it. So can you ask the converse, or your non-citizen? The thing is that if they put that question, again, the point Barr's making is not that it's, again, the thing about the Supreme Court decision, it said it was lawful, like, to ask the question. It just said the way that the Commerce Department went about proposing it didn't meet the standards of the Administrative Procedure Act. The problem is timing. They don't have enough time to, like, go through another full court challenge. So, yeah. Do I think this meeting will impact censorship? Yeah, I think so. I think the big tech companies are scared. The funny thing, I was standing next to, like, some PR people and some, like, quasi, like, lobbyist people who were like, hey, the Facebook guys, former, Paul Ryan, establishment Republican guys who now work for Facebook, they should have been here too. Like, they're good guys, right? The Facebook lobbyists, the Google lobbyists. And I'm like, absolutely not. They should not be here. The whole point of this exercise is to demonstrate adversarialness towards Facebook, Google, and Twitter. If they want to, they should know that the people they're banning are at the White House, and they aren't. And it's an entire collective group that is now beating up on the companies. If they want to be in the good graces of the conservative movement, guess what? They got to change things. Ron Coleman is here. What's good, Ron? The man himself. Still worth it to work on good state-level legislation? Yes, it is. It did feel like a good start, frankly. Ron Coleman in the chat. Shout out for Ron. Give him some hundreds. I don't know anything about HR 1044. Well, I mean, you might actually, if you told me what the legislation was, then I might know. It was cool being in the White House. It's the second time I've been there. I did a West Wing tour a couple months ago. That was interesting too, but yeah, no, it's a good year so far. Internet Bill of Rights depends on what's in them. Food booze, there was lemonade and iced tea. Ron is asked to join. Ron can join. I'm absolutely willing to have Ron join. Let's see if we can make it work. You're on in 3, Ron. Ron Coleman, ladies and gentlemen. What's up, Ron?
Hey. I got the shout out from you, so I just didn't feel that I could resist, jumping in.
Right.
It was a very cool event. It was. First of all, never happened before. Nothing like it ever happened before. It's of historic proportions.
Yeah.
Second of all, we were there.
Yeah.
We were invited. The president, all the people are supposed to hate, who are actually overwhelmingly cool guys and gals.
Yes.
We're there.
Yes.
And lifted from obscurity. And he didn't just come in, which I frankly thought was a possibility. Thanks for coming. It's really great to see you guys. Keep up the good work. How long was he up there? Will, he must have been up there 45 minutes.
At least. Like, I think it might have been more than an hour in total, honestly. Like, it might have been an hour and 15. Because, I mean, you think about it, he did the speech, and then he did the Q&A. And the speech was long, and the Q&A was long. Like,
it was terrific. And you, of course, you have entree to the White House, as all your followers know, all the time.
Right.
But for a guy like me, coming in from, like the president, born in Queens, a regular guy,
right.
For me to come into the White House, and I've never been in Donald Trump's presence before, but never. I mean, the setting was incredibly intimate.
Yeah.
And you know what he was saying? He was saying to us together, I want you guys to know that I appreciate that this is really cool for you. And that's part of why I did it.
Right.
Because you guys are carrying a lot of water.
Right.
Now, I don't know about that $500 million follower count.
Makes I think there's a lot of duplication there that's not being
counted. I think there could be a couple of duplicates among some of the accounts that were in the room.
Right.
But it was just a sparkling moment. His career. First of all, he's an immensely better speaker. I mean, obviously, he had prepared remarks, but as a stump speaker, his improvement over the last 2-3 years is mind-boggling.
Yeah, he's remarkably good. It's very true.
He owned the room. He's charming. The idiots who actually just hate him so much because they hate him, self-deprecating constantly. He makes himself the butt of almost every joke. But people don't get it. When he talks about how great he is, when he talks about how, of course I would have won no matter what, it's tongue-in-cheek. I mean, anyone...
Dude, that was so funny. Right?
Slightest sense of humor.
Yeah, no, it was so funny where he's like, yeah, I would have won, probably. Of course I'm going to say that I would have won. It was hilarious. It was super funny.
It was a great event, a terrific experience. Yeah. And plus we got to meet, all these people. There is no other man on earth who could have brought together, and I was joking with you that I meant the only possible other man might have been Cernovich. With all due respect to Mike, Cernovich could not have done it.
No. Oh, no. Ron, come back. Come back, Ron. No, it was right in the middle of a good point. Oh, wait. I'm chilling. I didn't see Dilly. I do not think Dilly was there. No. Cerno, maybe he got a phone call. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a phone call or something. He's a busy lawyer. Give him a second. See if he wants to come back. Cerno got him. I'm glad you're loving this. If you are enjoying this and you're new here, dot in the bottom right-hand corner screen, hit the follow button. Also follow me on Twitter at Chamberlain. He's back. Is Ron back? I'll throw out an invite. So, Ron Coleman, lawyer extraordinaire. This is for Ron, guys. So, like, if you're another person, you're not going to get an invite. I apologize, but I'm trying to keep, again, think about it. There's like 230 of you here. I want to put Ron up there. So I did witness the Gorka stuff. It was interesting. Experience. Had a good time. And I met Dan Bongino. That was the guy I met. That was interesting. Met Benny Johnson too. Turns out Benny likes my stuff. I didn't really know that. Come back, Ron. Where are you? No, he's not here. All right. Ronnie's a trial lawyer. Ron's an excellent lawyer. He's back. Okay. I'm throwing you an invite. Invite guests. This should give you a chance to rejoin. How many got invited? About 250 people. Cassandra Fairbanks is here. Ron is actually joined. There we go. All right, you're on.
Okay. That was obviously deep state interference with our.
Yes,
broadcast.
Clearly.
Yes. You're not even yet. No, I mean, I appreciate you're calling me back. Now that I've stepped in and taken over your broadcast, but it really was a lot of fun, and and then it's kind of cute. Then inviting us out to the Rose Garden to watch Seb Gorka almost beat up that guy.
Yeah, no, it was neat. It was like interesting to like see the press all like cobbled together and looking uncomfortable, and we're just sitting and chilling. Like it's like that's right. You guys are second class citizens. Press, we're the cool people.
That was really. I see a question beloved by God. So who did POTUS bring together? Yes, Mike is a good friend of all of ours, and his importance to me in social media in my career, so to speak, in social media is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
But
same.
If Mike does great events, and I've met a lot of people, including Will, at Mike's event. But when Donald Trump says, I'm having an event, you're invited. It's one thing for Mike Cernovich to comp you for a meetup in New York, and another thing to be invited to the White House. So we had a couple, almost a couple hundred people who were. That really look. Are there other guys I wish I could have met there? Are there people who I wish would have still given me their real names?
Right.
I thought I'd do a little bit better on that than I actually did.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously Carpe is trying to stay pseudonymous.
Yeah, dude. We respect his right to do that.
Of course.
Although once your picture's out there, you're not, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a limited amount you can do, but at the same time, like he's doing okay. Like I don't, I haven't seen his name because I think he's just super careful and doesn't tell anyone in our circle his name. So
yeah, and I had to, because my wife said, well, who do you know is going to be there besides your usual dumb old friends like Will? And I said, well, Carpe Dunkem's going to be there.
Said, right.
Well, what the hell is that? Well, you don't know his name? I said, well, there's kind of actually, the custom on the internet, on Twitter, is that if someone doesn't, unless you've got a really good reason to want to know someone's name, it's actually, if they're not giving the name. She said, I think I'm not going to actually allow to come home tomorrow because you got to come back. If you're using him as an example of someone you're going to get to meet.
Right. No, it was funny. So I talked with Andrew Morantz of the New Yorker and gave him comment for his story, which wasn't the most friendly story, but it wasn't terrible either. He's been in general like good to like our clique, if is the way I'd put it. But a point I made that ended up in the article was that like a lot of people were joking about Carpe being he got to go to the Oval Office last week and now he's invited back twice in 2 weeks, right? And everybody's like, well, like, sorry, Mr. British Ambassador, but I've got to talk to Carpe Dunkdom. And everybody's like making fun of him. And I made the point to Andrew, and he put it in his piece, and I was like, look, in 2019, Carpe Dunkdom is more relevant to American politics than the British Ambassador could ever be. Like, he's more important. And that's...
and there are also people do have to get this. What Carpe made the meme that the president himself retweeted, which was itself a variation on a Time magazine cover. Like he made news. He made genuine news, and the usual suspects came out and started kvetching, as we say in Queens, about the about time came out. Oh, do you know that was doctored? You know, the usual humorless, you know,
Mhm.
numbnutty comments. And the president, this entire exercise, which, you know, from bringing in Carpe, um, at, and then to bringing in the rest of us, is an exercise in completely changing the terms of who's legitimate, who
Yes.
is, where do you go for news and information. And listen, I live in the real world as you do, Will.
Mhm.
I'm a lawyer. I got to get up every day. I got to be responsible for, you know, for actually being engaged in the. It's not like social media is a great pastime of mine, and it certainly has enhanced my practice. But I actually need to really know what's going on. And as
Right.
a middle-aged professional and intellectual, I have a degree on my wall. It says
Mhm.
I'm an intellectual. That I made a decision that I'm no longer. I'm not even getting like from in the New York local news stations
Mhm.
are not even reliable for the most basic stuff that for my entire lifetime until a couple of years ago I could rely on them for.
Yes. Yes.
I open Twitter the way I used to turn on the radio
Yes.
to find out what's actually going on. And the president, by having this event, made a very strong hint to the rest of the country that they just might want to consider doing that themselves.
Right. That's actually a really good point. The fact that what he was showing to the rest of the country is this is the list of people that you should be paying attention to. Right. This is the group of people that actually are making news and are bring something real. And I mean, I know the way I feel. Like I think if you're in an audience watching Will Chamberlain and Ron Coleman on Periscope, I feel like we're preaching a little bit to the choir here because this is an extremely online group. Love you all, but
And also, if I can just that
yeah.
also when I have to admit that when I'm looking at Twitter, I'm not looking at the MSNBC Twitter account to find out what happened. Okay,
Mhm.
I have I make my choices about who I'm going to listen to, but I like to think they're not stupid choices.
Right. No, I agree. And I mean, like, I listen to, I need content, right? Part of my job, if you really were describing my job, it is creating and editing content of various types. So to create content, I need to have a good handle, and it's useful to follow lefty accounts. But yeah, in general, like, who do I trust? No, I don't. I don't trust the left. Not as far as I can throw them. I mean, if you read the left wing articles about this summit, you'd be like, Will Chamberlain is an extremist who is like flippantly comparing people getting banned on Twitter to Jim Crow, right? Like, and
But
it's like, come on, guys, let's calm down,
you
settle
know
down.
what the problem is that we expect that at this point from the usual suspects.
Right.
But when I get a comment like that from Seth Mandel,
Mm-hmm.
who, okay, I mean, we always knew that this is not about beating up on Seth, but he stands in very well
Mm-hmm.
for a type, which is a guy who actually, like, he's not. There are some Never Trump guys who have absolutely rounded the bend, right? We're not talking about a Bill Kristol or
Right.
Jennifer Rubin, who have just, it's completely a psychological breakdown. But a guy like, like Seth, who, okay, he is super skeptical about Trump in a kind of a Ben Shapiro way, but you'd like to think is ultimately a fair broker.
Right.
They can't. They cannot because, gosh, guess what? He works for the New York Post.
Mm-hmm.
And we are here to say that these legacy brand media companies, you and I have discussed this at length, what they are hollowed out brands.
Yes.
They are not news organizations in any meaningful way. They
Mm-hmm.
are entertainment brands with a news related association, and they just do whatever the hell they think will maximize profit, which is fine. This is America, but let's just be honest about what they're doing. It isn't news reporting.
I mean, it really is. They're serving the same news cycle we do on Twitter, and they're just doing what I do in a Twitter thread as an article. Like, when you think about what a Washington Examiner article is that Seth puts up. I mean, there's two types. One is like a Tiana Lowe op-ed, which, I mean, if you really do want the deep political insights of Tiana Lowe about the law, right?
Right.
Like that's where you go, right? Like if you want a 22-year-old that with a bachelor's in economics to tell you about the law. You can go to the Washington Examiner website and read it op-ed by Tiana Lowe. You want to actually listen to actual lawyers talk about the law, you can join a Will Chamberlain Periscope where we have Will Chamberlain and Ron Coleman. Ron Coleman, who's an actual, I'm a lawyer in the sense that I'm licensed. Ron Coleman's a lawyer in the sense that he practices, and he's practiced for 20 years. So
30 years.
30 years. My bad.
And I'm a lawyer in the sense that I know and I win and I lose. And if
Right.
you're not losing, then you're.
No. Ron, no. It's like, I love Ron. He was in the middle of such a good point there. He's like, if you don't lose, Periscope. Periscope. Man, production values. God damn. He's back. All right. Okay. He's turning it back. All right. I'm inviting you again. Invite guests. Damn you, Periscope. Camaraderie is good. Deep state. Clearly the deep state. Clearly the deep state. Oh, this is a good one, guys. Isn't that a good one? This is a good one. This is a fire scope right now. This is a fire scope. It's a fire Periscope. So he says you should be down networking with people. Maybe, but I'm introverted and I'm tired. I've been dealing with people all day. I'm zoned out. This is way more fun. Like, you think, like, Will, you're an introvert. Why is this better than introversion? You're talking to 190 people. I'm like, well, because, really, I'm just standing alone in my apartment right now. But I'm interacting with you guys. As I love doing. Exactly. I'm networking with you guys, right? Like, why would I not do that? Let me know when you're... Yeah, somebody says, clearly. Yeah, that's my Stephen A. Smith impression. I love Stephen A. Smith, low-key. Stephen A. Smith is, like, my favorite guy. He reminds me of, like, I forget what it is. It's like very Greek. Like the singers, the speakers. Like, whenever Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless would go out, you always notice that they will always begin on first take. They'd be like, say the other guy's name. Skip Bayless would be like, Stephen A. Smith. You're wrong about LeBron James. Stephen A. Smith would be like, Skip Bayless. LeBron has got to get it done. He's got to get it done. LeBron? Sorry. This, I don't know. Brief first take excerpt. You just found my scopes this week and said, damn, great stuff. If you're here, Grace Wendell sending me whiskey. Thank you, Gray. I appreciate it, bro. Gray is the dude who wrote a beautiful thread about me and human events and Raheem and Cass and all our people. So thank you to Gray, who's a beast. He sent me a bottle of Black Label, which is my fave. My promise is that I will drink it. Ron is back. Let's go. Come on. Come on, Ron. Ron. Is it working? It's not working. No like. You know what? All right. I think that one more time. We'll try it again. Okay, good. On in 4. All right.
It wasn't Periscope's fault. It wasn't Periscope's fault. Let's just leave it at that.
Right. Real lawyers lose cases.
Yeah, anyone who tries, if you don't lose, if you lose too much, then it's hard to explain why people would keep hiring you. But if you try cases as I do, you lose cases. There's no such thing as going to trial and not losing. Anyone who says I had a friend in college and I didn't come from a professional family. I didn't know too many lawyers. I knew this guy's dad was a lawyer. He said, my father never lost a case. What I found out is just his father knew that he had to settle every case because he wasn't going to. Now, this was a great lawyer. The guy was a great lawyer. And perhaps his judgment was better than mine about when to win and when to lose. But your client has something to say about that sometimes. And sometimes, frequently, they push you. That doesn't mean they don't second guess you when you lose. That's that's the fun part. Whatever. Anyway, enough about me. What do you think about me?
Well, no, I mean, that just connects back to the point of like what we were talking about what the Washington Examiner does, right? That And really, the thing I don't like about that type of news is that it is duplicative of stuff you get on Twitter. Like, it's just not different in so many ways.
Well, no, right. In other words, what really makes it a newspaper?
Right. Yeah. What distinguishes it from what you see on Twitter? Like, very, very little. Like, the op-eds are not interesting or thoughtful. The news is quick hits based on the news cycle that is not really is just ripping off of Twitter, and they're just trying to drag you to their website to get page views and clicks. It's like,
I'll tell you, the New York Times, when you get them off the political sort of madness that has overtaken them, as well as not only Trump versus our guys, but also the gay rights and the extreme everything. When they're doing news, they're doing stuff that no one can do.
Right. Like that we don't have the tools to do. Like,
we don't have right. It's great. The resources they can really do it right, and yet they're living in a world in which they and a handful of other big media companies have, over the last few years, given themselves a series of awards for reporting relating to Trump Russia,
which was trash. It was trash.
And it's like the complete. Is there no degree of honesty? So it's hard to imagine, like, when the Times, and it does happen a couple times a year, and I subscribe. It's still on my homepage, and I, anyone who watches my feed, which I'm being told lately no one does, because it seems to people tell me I'm shadow banned, although the test doesn't suggest that I am. Maybe I'm just getting boring. But a couple times a week, you're just going to see me tweeting a story from the Times. Why? Because I'm following the Times, and I'm filtering it, and I'm evaluating how much is garbage, and if it has to do with the White House, it's usually going to be garbage. And if it has to do with Israel, or I guess I know what they're no longer capable of covering. But gosh, when they do put it together, that's your point. It's nothing like the Examiner. It is real. The real journalism is still possible.
Yes, and they still do occasionally indulge in it, right? And when they do, you're like, okay, that I can't do that, right? Like, and that's actually a really good point. There's nothing I see on the Washington Examiner I think I couldn't do that. Like, just personally on my own. Like,
listen, one of the most important, you also have the weekly magazines of the newspapers.
Right.
When I was preparing the Gavin McInnes complaint, I had open in front of me almost the whole time the Washington Post magazine report by David Montgomery, who happens to be an old college friend of mine. And this is a guy who spent his entire life, even in when we were in school, being a journalist. By the way, he's the son of the lawyer that I just quoted, who was a tremendously successful lawyer. David Montgomery Jr. is an example of a great journalist who's still journalism's the real thing. He does it. He earns it. Think of some of the names, some of these gigantic echo chambers you have, on Twitter now, of people with the name of their newspaper or their network in their Twitter handle, and they're just garbaging. It's just a complete joke. So it can be done, but if they're not gonna insist on the standards, then what's going to happen is sooner or later it's going to be acknowledged that they're simply only speaking to a silo, to people in their own camp, and that may be, and this actually I'm going to very cleverly bring us back to our main point. That may be a business model, but it will give lots of room for President Trump to succeed and to say, that's a business model, but it is no more a source of truth about what's news and information in the world. In many respects, there's reason to believe it will be less of one than social media, than citizen journalists. And by the way, not everyone who can also have a citizen journalist is one. Not everyone. There's a lot of garbage. And listen, it's true that you can often tell, certain kinds of visual clues to certain kinds of, conservative tweets that look every bit as bad.
Mhm.
And I've been known to unfollow people because they retweet certain kinds of garbage. I'm just
Oh,
not.
actually, that's true. I do that too. Like if like certain sort of like dumb like conspiratorial or
Right.
fanboying stuff, if right, like if that comes from, I mean, it's just if it's dumb and you retweet it, then it's like I don't want you in my feed because now, like, I take
You're, make,
seriously the idea that like I
you're
think
making me
following you
dumber.
should be meaningful, So
That's right.
right, like if I follow you, you should have a reasonable confidence that I'm going to be seeing your tweets, and if that's not happening, then I'm not really following you, even though I gave you a follow. So
Will, be honest. How many follows do you have where you have muted the person?
it's not going to be more than 50, I would say.
Yeah, so mine's much less than that, but yeah, obviously I'm a 30,000 guy, not on your level.
I
Like
mean, yeah,
there are
it's like
people, there are people just in terms of, and here we're a little bit being fake, and you
yeah,
can't, what, with people's feelings, you have to sometimes be fake, and
yeah.
and that's that is frankly entirely appropriate to just look. Do I look fat in this? No, you look great.
Yeah, right. Like I'm not trying to be rude, and I really do try to avoid it. Like I do
But
prefer unfollowing, but in some cases, like it can create its own little problem, and it's not worth it. So
there's someone I saw tonight, in fact, who I was astonished to find that person. And I'm going to avoid using a pronoun,
mm-hmm.
was invited because I picked up early on that notwithstanding this person's massive size following, this person didn't appear to have anything intelligent to say ever, ever.
I
But
feel
I
like
do
we're talking
not.
about the same person. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I feel that person I cannot. I don't have the heart to unfollow that person
Mm-hmm.
because I believe that person would be hurt by it. So I sometimes have to, and then of course you hope they're not, tagging you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah,
I digress.
yeah. No, but I mean that's true. And yeah, I agree. I think that to circle back again to the point that you were earlier making, like there is garbage on social media too. It's the same filtering mechanism you have to do for anything. But outside of actual real journalism, which only a few outlets are even capable of doing in the way
Right.
that we think of it, right? Like because and I'm learning this in terms of like what it's like to actually try and do some journalism in the course of human events and running
Right.
human events. It's hard, like, and it's not appealing. Personally, because I just don't know anything. I'm not a journalism major. I have no experience in the field. So, like, somebody came to us and be like, well, we have these great photos of like a Ukraine thing. And I'm like, I don't know anything about this. I don't know how to vet it. I don't know how to fact check it. And like, if they went to the New York Times and the New York Times agreed, like the New York Times would have like, okay, here's the set of processes you go through. Here's like what you do to vet and make sure it's right and fact check and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's just all that I have no clue. Like,
No,
I mean,
no,
I feel like it's not that hard to learn, but at the same time, it seems like there are resources, experience,
yeah.
processes you just need to have.
No,
And that I
listen.
don't.
If Human Events is going to be a magazine of thought,
Mm-hmm.
it's not. You might find it worthwhile. Since you didn't ask me, I'll give you my thought on this. That
Yeah.
maybe once a year, you find someone. You know what could be your proxy
Mm-hmm.
for really for having the resources of the New York Times or the Washington Post or the LA Times could be that you get someone that we really know and trust, and that you're
Mm-hmm.
willing to someone like Molly Hemingway,
Mm-hmm.
you know uh, a good number of people that I can think of, and
Right.
that your board, or that your management feels okay, it works for her or him, and it works for us, and that will be your annual journalism-y story, a multi-part
Right.
series or something like that. But by and large, there is one thing though as a caveat, which is that we have to keep in mind that to a large extent, what we associate as the golden age of journalism is, of course, a myth.
Yeah. That's true. That's
On
true.
the and then on the other hand, is Abe Rosenthal spinning in the grave right now? Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because as much as there was to apologize for what the Times did and didn't cover in the generation of our parents, and when I was growing up, and all the misleading. And listen, knowing what we know now about the Russia conspiracy, it's very easy to understand that Watergate was an absolute media political takedown operation. Not that Nixon wasn't a crook,
Right.
but the way it went down and the nature of the supposed crime, just the whole thing. You see now that what really happened. The point is, though, is there were standards, and even if they failed to meet those standards, in theory, you could get Abe Rosenthal in a smoky bar and get him to admit these are the standards, and they exist. And I think, I mean, what did it mean when the Times, which had done this really incredible, great PR move, and really, I was so astonished when it happened that we have a public editor now.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have someone who's going to call us out on this. And then they decided to say, nah, forget it.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I don't know. So people are noticing that I am tired, which is true. I need to wrap it up. I'm about to fall asleep.
Oh, well, listen, when I get to be your age, I hope I'll also know that my time has come to go to sleep.
All right.
I'm all wired.
Enough,
I'm all wired from tonight. Great, Linkson. Thanks for letting me completely take, because I'll never do a Periscope.
Totally fair.
But I'll do yours.
Right. I love it.
And
Thank you so much, Ron.
Just knowing that you didn't end up going to a better party after I left the one we were at.
I don't know. I mean, I left that one after like 45 minutes too.
See ya. Hey, everyone, thanks for listening with us.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Good night.
All right. Later on. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had fun. Thanks for hanging out for a pretty long scope. I will talk to you all later. I'm going to go to sleep. Peace.